We get a little message. And we are on session 5. So we were supposed to complete units 8 and units 9 before we came. We definitely had some questions on unit 8. I'm sure a lot of you, while you were taking unit 8, were maybe overwhelmed by the complexity. But we're going to try to make that a little bit more manageable and kind of break all those down. So let's first start out with some questions that came up. So Darcy, we got this question again, which are, how are apps and extensions different? Do you want to explain that?
Well, really, when I did some more digging and research, so the Chrome extensions, they extend what Chrome, your browser, can do. And you can find those in the App Store. So that's it's kind of a colored grid on the upper left-hand corner of your screen. But when I looked for more apps, what I am finding is that most apps are considered obsolete anymore. They don't even have them in the web store. You can get them for specific products, and I consider the apps are more like things that I would use as add-ons in some of my specific applications. Like for my Google Docs, I have an add-on that I can use that allows it to check for accessibility if someone is using it for a screen reader. I have an add-on that adds some different word clouds and some different ways there. But when I started looking, and I Googled this question so I could have a really great answer, I don't have one for you, because the extensions that you're going to find in the web store, I can't find apps anywhere. So Ethan, maybe you can add to that, but that's what I have been finding.
So when I think of the Google apps, I think of what we would call the Google Suite. When I think of the word app, I think of an application. So like Screencastify could be considered an application. So you can go to the Screencastify website, but you don't use it as an application. You use it as an extension of your Chrome browser. So I just think that the technology is evolving, and so is the vocab. And so a lot of these things we're realizing at Google, they're realizing that these really are extensions of the platforms we're going to be using. Extensions are mainly here in Chrome. And apps, I think, would exist beyond Chrome. That's just the big way how I would define it. Extensions specifically work with your Chrome browser, anything that you would need to do, but apps kind of expand beyond that. Apps can also be integrated into different Google Suite. So you can add apps into your Google slide deck, and it can allow you to make quiz style questions. You can add apps into Google Sheets, and it will allow you to do extra formulas or be able to use your sheets in a different way. And I'll kind of talk about that when we get there. And we're going to get there. Are there any questions on that? And Darcy, apps and extensions, that difference, that's not something that we'll experience on the test, is it?
No, and they won't have you at putting anything into your Chrome browser. They'll have you, all the extensions that you need will be there. They have prepared for that. You won't be adding anything like that. I think one of the things that I would like to show next time is what we call the add-ons, and what specific add-ons I have in some of my Google Suite programs. Like, what do I use as my add-ons with Google Slides? What do I use as my add-ons with Google Docs and with Google Slides or with Google Sheets? So I think that's where we'll go next time. But even when you go to the Google web, the Chrome web store, and it says apps up there, all you can find is extensions. It's not there anymore. So but that's a great question. And I think we'll probably update the vocabulary here pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, then let's go into Unit 8 real quick. And let's talk about, because we definitely got a lot of responses about Unit 8, the measure, understand, and share student growth. and its big focus was on Google Sheets. And so I really want to make sure we kind of go over what a Google Sheet is if you're unfamiliar with it. It's a powerful, powerful spreadsheet tool. And spreadsheets operate everywhere. They're databases for text and numerical values, and they're ways that we can manipulate and display this data. They can be used as complex or as simply as you liked. They can be added on to different things. And so there's also a lot of templates that you can use with Google Sheets. So I kind of want to go over some examples real quick. Everything that you use in your grading system is going to have some type of spreadsheet on the back end. You just won't see it. So like in this forms, right, this is a Mythbusters where it's just 5 true or false questions. That data is going to be stored in some form of spreadsheet. Now, Google does the awesome job of helping us quickly aggregate that data in beautiful graphs and get huge summaries, and they break it down by question or by individual. But you can also come over here to the spreadsheet and pull all that data out, right? Now, this is not going to be as visually appealing to your students or to yourself as using the pre-created responses in the summary section of the forms. Now, that being said, there's some really amazing ways you can use. So I want to talk to you about real quick and just highlight how we have used this at ESD 101 with one of the projects I worked on. So this right here is a slide deck that we used as a menu when we went and interviewed school leaders about a barometer report that they may or may not wanted to do. And the barometer report was to gauge kind of what was going on with their teachers, students, and parents during this first part of the pandemic. And so in this, we just used a spreadsheet as a form, really, right? We could have made this into a form, but it was easier just to use the spreadsheet because one person was filling it out. We also had this checklist. So you can use a spreadsheet as a checklist, right? And I could share this. So me and Darcy could use a spreadsheet. It was almost like a task completion spreadsheet. We could both have access to it, and we could both check confirmed or decline, or hey, we've messed with this, or no, we didn't mess with this. And so in this case, we just listed all of the different questions that we asked. And we said, hey, do you want us to ask these questions in the response form? So this is what the template had looked like. We used Google Forms, and they answered all of these questions. Now, when you got the responses back from 200 plus teachers at 3 different schools, you realize that, or 5 different schools, the data did not look as good as we needed it to. So we needed to pull the data out into a spreadsheet like this. And what you can do with this is then you can do all of those complex formulas, right? You can make graphs out of this by creating charts. We did something like this where we create a piecewise table where we take topics, right? Like attitudes towards distance or hybrid learning, which might be like 3 questions, right? And we take those questions and we use each of the answers, we give it a numerical value, and then we can create almost like a quick snapshot. And you'll see if I click in this one cell, look how much formulas are done to just that one cell, right? And the ultimate goal of this is to, and what the spreadsheet ultimately looks like, and this will look more familiar to you, is you develop something like this. You develop something like a data studio where you have a pivot table, right? And then you can go and say, okay, I just want to see option 2's information, right? That's the only thing I want to see. And then all of this information down here will change to just option 2, right? Maybe I want to see the whole entire district. So I'm going to click all 4 options, and then I'll see the data on all 4 options. So this is a high level of it. You can do a lot of stuff with Data Studio. We don't even cover that, but all this whole Data Studio is being pulled back from those spreadsheets. right? So I know teachers who use spreadsheets to check books in and out, right? They use a Google spreadsheet maybe to monitor the frequent bathroom uses of their students, how many, bathroom passes they have, whatever it may be. But you can also get really, really complex with it. Darcy, what have you used some spreadsheets for?
So I'm a data nerd, and when I was in the classroom, I would set up a spreadsheet for things that I didn't want to put in Skyward. I didn't like to necessarily put my pre-tests and post-tests in Skyward. I wanted to see where they were when they came in. So I would create my own little roster, my pre-test, then my post-test, and I'd see their growth. Pretty simple. I would use it for as I created rubrics on it. And so then I could just check off when students were doing reports. I would create a rubric on either Google Sheets or Google Forms, and then I could have that information all in one spot. I will say that Excel or Google Sheets, the spreadsheets piece, is probably one of the ones that's most intimidating to people. And I want you to take a big, deep breath and realize it's not going to be that big of a deal. When I took my test, they're going to provide everything you need for the scenarios that they give you. If you know why you want to use a sheet, what are some of the processes? Why would you want to use a spreadsheet? That's going to be really good. If you know a couple of simple formulas, I use sheets on a daily basis. The big formulas I use are sum and average. That's it. There's lots of other stuff there, and I can make it like Ethan said, it can be as complex or as simple as I like. But on a daily basis, I don't use much more than sum or average. And so they are a great, I like check marks. I'm a big checklist person. And so I would create checklists all the time with Google Sheets. So.
Awesome. And I mean, if you're familiar with QuickBooks or anything like that, like you're using any of your bank statements or using that same type of spreadsheet formula. Yeah. So it can be as helpful or as complex or as simple as you like. We think this is going to be the most complex task you could possibly receive on the Google test. So I want to put this test out here, and I'm going to share this link in the chat, and then I'm actually going to do this with you to give you a full example, but I want to post this in the chat first.
And while he's doing that, I do want to point out that what he's doing with providing you a set of data is exactly what's going to happen when you take the test. They're going to provide you with the data that they want you to work with. You don't have to create it off the cuff. You don't have to say, oh, wait a minute, how am I going to create all these? Don't worry about it. They're going to provide anything you need to work with that way. Because I know sometimes when you don't have that data to work with, you're like, well, I don't want to have to create data just to make a sheet to practice. So.
Absolutely. So that's what's going to happen. You're going to get, so if you click that link that we posted, it's going to prompt you to copy something, and it's going to copy a hyper or a hypothetical scenario where you have, I think we put in 10 students, and those 10 students are famous celebrities you might have heard of, and they've taken 2 tests and they've gotten scores on those 2 tests. And so what we would want you to do is, the first thing we want you to do is we want you to organize the name of the students and their scores. So make sure the scores go with the students in alphabetical order. The next thing we want you to do is find the sum, and there's 2 places where you can put sum or average, right? So we want you to do the sum and the average, and I believe those are B13 and C13 respectively, and the average would go in B14 and C14 respectively. And then finally, we want you to find the average of each of your students' 2 test scores and input them in their correct position in column B. And what I want to do, and Darcy, should we give them about 5 minutes maybe to just kind of mess around with it, and then I'll go from start to finish and show everything?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to mess around with this. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and we can talk through them, because I do want you to try to do this. And then I'm going to go live to site and I'm going to show you what this would look like.
And always remember that if you do something you didn't like, Control Z is undo, and that is your best friend.
Best friend, best friend. Because
so keep that in mind.
Spreadsheets, you can do stuff where you go, oh, I just deleted everything on accident. Or I highlighted everything and I pushed a number, and so that number has now become everything. So yes, Command Z also works if you're on a Mac.
I'm going to step away and get some water, and I'll be right back, Ethan.
Sounds good. And I am here if anyone needs any support while you're trying.
Scores.
With the way the information is entered into the columns, when you try to put it in alphabetical order, it winds up moving your labels as well into alphabetical order.
So then highlight it. And then don't select entire column, select range. Yes, that's a great idea. Making copies of your original data sheets to make sure, hey, if I did mess something up, because I mean, when you're building these algorithms and these formulas, you are, I mean, that's computational thinking right there, but you're also, you can run into small mistakes. You've ever heard of like coders where they have to look through sheets and sheets of their code and they've made one period in the wrong place, or they've put a bracket instead of a parenthesis at one place and they have to search through it. That can happen when you're building some complex algorithms.
Always remember that Google Sheets, Slides, and Docs have the option to version history. So if you've gone into a document and done something and you're like, okay, I need to go backwards and I need to go back to what I came into, always go under File and Version History, and it saves every time that you open it up, it creates a new version. It doesn't, you don't see that, but it saves it. Version history is your best, another one of your best friends. Lots of best friends with Sheets.
Yes, and I saw, I can't even alphabetize it. So you're going to want to find the alphabetizer, and that is going to be where you see tools. I'm sorry, where you see data, you'll see sort sheet. And you want to make sure it's highlighted as Hope had just said. And y'all know that's Ollie. He is destroying my office right now, so you can hear him in the background. That was a trash can. All right, so I'm going to give you about 1 more minute, and then I'm going to take over and I'm going to show you what this is. And during this, you can follow along, but feel free to ask as many questions as you would like.
And remember that this particular scenario is going to show up on that. We have a Google Choice scenario board that you're going to get next week. And there will be, this scenario will be there, plus a video embedded in there, so you can see him do it over and over and over again.
All righty. Oh, Kim's got one. Kim says, here is my link. All right, I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to look at Kim's link. Zoom share. Let's see Kim's. All right, very nice, Kim. Very nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. All right, so I'm going to show you from the top. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this link. It's going to ask me to make a copy, so I'm going to click make a copy. Now I've got this blank spreadsheet, and my first task asked me to organize this alphabetically. Now, if I don't click anything, right, and I go here to data and I go to sort column, right, that's the entire column. And if I go to sort column A to Z, you're going to see this all changes, right? We don't want that, right? So I'm going to undo that. So what I want to do is I want to highlight what I'm going to sort. Now, here's another thing that will happen. If I just highlight these names and I go to data, I don't want to sort by a column anymore. I want to sort by range because I've highlighted a certain range that I want. So now I'm going to sort range, right, A to Z. But what happened there is you notice these changed, but my test scores did not. So I need to undo it, and I need to highlight my names and my test scores. Right? So this was our first step, highlighting names and test scores, then going to my data, and then I want to sort range A to Z, and now everything will change. Right? We see Aretha Franklin's at the top. She scored a 93 and 100, and now we're good. Right? So the next thing I want to do is I want to find the sum. And I gave you what you would need to do right here. So one of the special things to set an algorithm or to solve is you start by hitting an equal sign. And then you're actually going to see a bunch of formulas pop up. And these are the suggested ones. So you might have seen suggested based off data, some already pop up. And it kind of highlights the data. If you didn't get that, you're just going to type in equals sum, and you'll see all of these. You can do sum if statements, sum statements, all of that. But in this case, we're just going to do sum. And then I need to hit an open parentheses, and this is going to allow me to select my data. So in this case, I just want to select from Aretha Franklin's 93 down to Tom Hanks' 72. And now I need to close my parenthesis. And you'll notice the parentheses, Google Sheets is this great thing where they kind of highlight the two parentheses to make it close. If I add a third parenthesis here, it's going to be in red, and I won't be able to enter it. They'll say, hey, you've got one or too many parentheses. You got to fix something. So got my parenthesis here.
Okay, Ethan, I'm sorry. Slow down. I got to the alphabetized part. Can you just do that one more time? That part that you just did right now. Sorry,
so
thank you.
It asked me to, here it asked me to do the sums, and it gave me the formula, and they'll give you the formula. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my B13, which is right next to total sum, and I'm going to click equals. And that equal sign starts the different formulas that I can use. And so you could do equals this plus this plus that, right? And just do a line. That's not useful. So for me, I'm going to do equal sum, right? Which is a formula. And I'm going to put my parentheses, and that parentheses says, hey, now you can start capturing data values, right? You can start highlighting cells. So in this case, I'm just going to go from 93 and drag it down to 72. And if I just click enter here, it did give me the 753, and it automatically put that in parentheses. And I just kind of talked about, if I added a parenthesis here, it would say no matching, and it wouldn't let me enter it, right? It would say, no, there's something messed up. If you maybe add two parentheses here, it's going to let you know as well, hey, you might need it. Oh, okay, it did pass. It will add an in parentheses. See how it added 2 parentheses? I could add 100 parentheses, wouldn't matter. It's still just summing that data. So right there, boom, I got 734. Are we cool with that? So now what I can do is I can do the same thing for this one over here. I can do equals and I can do sum. But the other cool thing I can do with Google Sheets is I can actually go over here to the bottom right-hand corner and I can grab this. And if I grab this 85 right here and I move it over, it's going to make a bunch of 85s, right? It's going to copy that formula. Well, if I grab this 73, which is at this 734 is actually a formula. It's the sum of this range that I selected. And I just grab it over. It's going to, and if I click this, it will show you. It just took the same formula, sum, and it moved it over a column to column C. Same range and everything. Does that make sense? Okay. So that prevents me from having to retype that sum over and over again. Now here I'm trying to find the averages of my tests. So my class averages. So here, and that was the next thing, right? It told me, yep, find the class averages in B14 and C14. So here I'm going to do the same thing. What do I do to start my formulas? I hit which button? Equal sign, right? That equal sign starts my formula. And I'm looking for the average. So I'm going to start typing that in, AV, and I get average right there. And in this case, I don't want average ifs. I don't want weighted average. I just want average, right? So I'm clicking average here. And then it already popped up that parentheses. That's super helpful. And now I just need to highlight this text, right? And now I'm just going to find the average of that. And I get it to be my average being 73.4. Now, if you don't see 73.4, you might, and I'm just going to shift the decimal places over here. If I go over here, it's just going to say 73, right? And then as I can expand it, I can add the different, decimal places. In this case, I only need 1 decimal place. Now, I want to make this very clear as well. If I came here and clicked, and I'm just going to the one right to find the average of test 2. And I click equals, and then I click average, right? And I'm just typing in this average. And I click this entire cell and click enter. Oops, that said reference. Let me do this real quick. Okay, the reason it won't allow me to do that actually right now is because it can't average this numerical value or a text value. So that's one of the things that's already popping up. But if this wasn't here, and I'm just going to delete this just to show you. If I delete this and I go equals my average, and then I click the entire column, I'm adding in this 802. And again, the reason it's probably saying it's not able to is because this is actually a formula of the sum. So it's letting you know your reference is wrong. So I just want to make sure highlighting everything, and I'm just going to undo this real quick, is really, really helpful, right? So whenever I type something in, I'm going to make sure instead of clicking a column or a row, I'm actually going to highlight my entire text and build that range in. Now, would I necessarily need to do that? Would I necessarily need to retype equals average here? No, I wouldn't, because I can come right here and I can just grab this and pull it over, right? And now I know my average for test 2 is 80.2. And if you ever want to check on it, just click it and then click inside your parentheses and you'll see what range is being added up. Now, let's find our last task, which is the average for each individual student. So in this case, I'm going to come over here to this average to the right, and I'm going to click equals, and I'm going to type in average, right? And then I'm going to make sure I'm just using test 1 and test 2. So I horizontally move over, close my parentheses, and now I got a net average 96.5. And notice Google Sheets is already suggesting, hey, do you want to fill this whole row out? Yes. right? So I can click the check and I can fill it
In the
all.
middle of my Zoom class and reading the text messages. My car's really hot. That's quite all right. This is my steering wheel.
Sorry about that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this right here, this average. And again, I'm just pulling it down, right? And it's automatically, each one of these is collecting those 2 points of data, right? Collecting these 2 points of data, collecting these 2 points of data. Does that make sense? Does anyone want me? And then all I
And
would,
we have some people that are pretty overwhelmed right
Okay.
now. And that's okay. It's one of those things. This is probably one of the most intimidating pieces. I find forms intimidating because it's the two-way communication piece. This is intimidating because it's numbers and it's formulas. And honestly, if you know, I'm going to have you do one thing. Ethan, if you could go up to students and go in, so click on the students column, insert column to the right. Okay, so that's how you insert a column. That's something I need to know how to do, is so insert a column. Ethan, would you please highlight the names and go to data? And would you go down to the bottom where it says split text into columns? And click space. Now you have your names in first and last names. Now they're in separate columns. A lot of times that was a very handy tool in the classroom where I'd get a list of students and everything is in one column. I would just highlight and split it into 2 columns. You know, there were a couple of places where they had 3 names or whatever, and we had to do some adjusting, but that was another handy tool. Hope, I saw that you had your hand raised.
Yeah, initially like sorting names, if people are still having trouble with that, the drop down tool on column A is not super helpful if you're clicking the little caret that shows up on column A. So if you highlight just the names and then you click into just your blue highlighted area with your names, then you can get the sort range, which is what you're going to need for just sorting the names. Well, obviously you have to highlight the scores too, but that caret piece was not giving you the option to sort the range. So if that's where people are getting stuck, that worked for me.
Yeah, I don't use the carets. I use the data and sort range. And please know, if you are like, okay, I need some one-on-one time, shoot one of us an email and we will for sure just, we'll find a time to do a Zoom and work with you one-on-one. I mean, I can say that for me. Ethan, I just volunteered you, sorry. But I know how intimidating this particular piece can be. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, especially like if you have never saw equals average and then a cell range, like have a ton of grace on yourself because that's what this is, right? It can get very, 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 very confusing, right? Like it just can. But I do think this is a 21st century skill that you don't have to be, I mean, there's people who have entire careers taking data like this from a form and displaying it in beautiful ways, right? They're called data scientists, right? And they take crazy data and they come up with awesome conclusions from it. There's entire investment firms that scan all of Twitter pull them into things like this, and then run algorithms on them. What are positive things being said? What are negative things being, and they take billions of dollars and they invest because of that, right? So this platform can be very, very complex. Like a lot, I mean, you just the tools over here and that formatting and data and all of those, that vocabulary can be overwhelming. You will not have to do all of that. What I would practice on is this right here. And this is at most the most difficult thing you would do. I think Darcy's most right. They might just say, hey, we want you to add a column to the right of test 2 to create a test 3. So what you would do, you would come here to C, you would double click it or right click it, depending on what your Mac or computer. And then you would say insert one right? And then we would get a column to the right. So those are the things that's the max amount of things that you would need to do. Maybe they say, hey, delete column D. Okay, I'm going to go to column D. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to delete the column, right? And that pulls everything back. Right. And so that would be at max, maybe finding the sum, maybe averaging and sorting it. But other than that, you're not going to need to do too much more than that. Okay. So absolutely, I will make myself available if anyone needs help to dive through a spreadsheet and at least be able to do this task right here. Okay, well then let's move on to our next unit, which was unit 9. And Darcy, you go ahead and take this one away.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to spend some time talking about how you teaching students to use online skills. And it's more than just teaching them how to use applications. And it's about learning how to search safely, how to search efficiently, how to search effectively, and some ideas with copyright laws. So I'm going to go ahead and, Ethan, I'm going to go ahead and take over and share my screen, if that's okay. Are you seeing the presentation? Okay, great. Oop, I didn't want to share it. I hit the wrong button all the time. Okay, so how to search safely. We are going to talk a little bit. One of the things that you want to teach with your students is, what does it mean to have safe searches? What are we looking for? And one of the things that when I am teaching, I'm going to back up. So that's kind of our intro slide to the entire thing. When I am teaching tech, these are my norms. And this is what I would work with my students all the time on. Until I'm proven otherwise, I don't assume that you have any prior knowledge. As far as when you're in my classroom, if you walk in the door, I don't assume you know anything unless I've taught it to you, especially tech-wise. And so that's a norm that just, okay, this is how we're going to approach it, kind of a mindset. When we do tech, we want to go slow at first in order to speed up the process later. I promise, go slow, go slower. It'll speed it up later. When you are teaching with students in the classroom and you're doing tech, anticipate your challenges. Outages are going to happen. People are going to have trouble getting logged in. Have a plan for them. When I had an entire day of tech, if I had a lesson that was tech heavy all day long, I had a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. I just kept going down the alphabet. Have multiple plans for that. I remember the first time that we all did online testing, this Smarter Balance and online testing. The first day of testing, the entire state system got shut down. We had to have another plan. The next norm that I try to keep in place is I tell, show, do, multiple modes of input. When you are teaching something to students or colleagues about tech especially, there is a phrase that I think needs to be banned from our vocabulary. The phrase that we need to ban from our vocabulary is "that's easy." Take it out. Because when you say, oh, it's just easy, it's easy. Yeah, and here's the situation. I sat in a classroom with a student. She called me over to get some help, and she was in another teacher's classroom, and she kept asking for help on the website, asking for help. And he, from across the room, said, it's easy, you should be able to do it, just do this. And lo and behold, when I stood over her shoulder and watched what was happening, the website wasn't working. And he didn't know it. And she was shutting down very easily. And so take that phrase out and always do an activity yourself before you push it out to kids. Do it first, practice it. If you can, and you have access to a student computer or a student account, try to do it with their restrictions, because many, many times I have pushed something out to students and they can't do the activity because they have different restrictions than I do on my teacher computer. Do it first before you push it out to them to make sure that they can actually do what you're asking them to do. Encourage questions and give it more than one try. Kind of like the spreadsheets. If today you are overwhelmed with that, give it another try. Please, please ask questions. Please come and email either Ethan or myself, and we will work with you and get you up to speed, I promise. But give it more than one try. Please do not stop because of spreadsheets. Guaranteed. I do want to go back just for a minute and talk about copyright laws. One of the things that has been a huge issue with the availability of material on the internet is students particularly say, well, it was published online, so I should be able to use it. It didn't have a copyright symbol, so I should be able to use it. Here's the deal. Anything that is written down or preserved in any form has a copyright. It could be written on a napkin. And if it was preserved and saved and written down, it is copyrighted. You don't have to have the copyright symbol on it anymore. You don't have to go through that whole process. Just because it's on the internet, just because you can copy and paste something doesn't mean that it is not copyrighted and it is free for use. Guaranteed. There are lots of sites for free material. There are sites for pictures. I use Pixabay, Unsplash. You can do Google searches for copyrighted materials or that have that Creative Commons license. Teach your students what that Creative Commons license and what those different types of licenses mean. Another thing that in the classroom, teachers are great at beg, borrow, and steal. That's how we do. Please make sure that when you do that, that you are using it with the appropriate fair use laws. You're not copying an entire book and giving it to your students. That's not fair use. Copying a paragraph and having it, giving it out to them so you can analyze that paragraph, that's fair use. Make sure that you become familiar with that. Some ideas for teaching students online skills. When you are doing research skills, have them do a search scavenger hunt. I like to use specific sites for younger kids. For example, I would say, I want you to use I want you to use World Almanac for Kids. That website, that's the only website you're going to go see. This is an example from FactMonster. So what it does is it teaches our kids how to find answers within a site quickly and efficiently without giving them free reign over the internet. When I was working with 8th grade ELA, even at that level, I gave my students a specific set of sites to gather their information from at the beginning of the year. I did not give them free reign of the internet until towards the end of the year, after we have worked on building those research skills. This is a resource. If you have a school district email through the state of Washington and you're a teacher in a district, the Smarter Balanced Tools for Teachers is a great website that will give you lots and lots of resources. This particular resource is written by a friend of mine who created some resources for digital research. Let's see if I can go directly to that resource. And it's not going to. So right here, can you trust me? Students will learn why credibility matters and determine the credibility of a digital source by using the CUT strategy. Current, is it current? Looking at the URL, and is it trustworthy? An entire lesson about internet dependability of different resources. So tools for teachers, Smarter Balanced, digital library. If you have used the digital library in the past, Tools for Teachers is the new reimagined and reinvented version of that. I find it 10 times better. Great resources. Another idea, do the Google a Day. So Google a Day is just a fun game. This would be one that students might use in secondary classrooms. We ask a question, you find the answer. So they'll give you a question like, what abolitionist rented a house from the husband of the woman for whom Grace Park in Akron, Ohio was named? Okay, so we got to find our keywords here. We got to find what we're going to search. We're going to find out, we might need to look up what an abolitionist is. So having them work in teams to try and find the answer to these particular questions that they will give you. I'm going to go out of that. And then scaffold those search skills. Again, elementary, give them 2 to 3, I'd start with 1, then maybe 2 to 3 sources that they can use and websites to search that you've vetted, that you've given them, that you know has appropriate material on it. Middle school, start with a larger set of resources, maybe 5 websites that they can get their information with, and then gradually release some of that and say, I'm going to give you 3, you need to find 2 more. Or I'm going to give you 2, you need to find 3 more. Recognizing that giving them more material to search through is not always better. That does not mean that it's always better. It just means that they've got more stuff to search through, which leads us to these next pieces. These search modifiers. You're not going to be asked to memorize these, I promise. But there are a couple that are key. I like to do a search, another scavenger hunt. You know, here's a number of questions, and I have them use these search modifiers to find these questions. Find me a camera that is around $500. Find me a post that talks about Finally Friday, which using that hashtag. The one that as an English teacher was my go-to were the quotation marks. For example, quotation tallest building. If I was reading an essay and there was a particular sentence that seemed really out of place, I would take that sentence, put a quotation at the beginning, quotation at the end, and find it. And 9 times out of 10, I knew exactly where it was coming from. And I could find that exact piece. So that is one that I really relied on a lot. I also used some different things like combining. If I have students looking for different terms and looking for different vocabulary pieces, this example is marathon or race. I might have softball or baseball. And so looking to combine some of those so that the search is a little bit wider and giving them access to that academic vocabulary. I want to open it up for questions before we go on to what you're going to be talking about this week.
Darcy, thank you so much for those tips. I want to use some of those tips now to search some stuff that I've been researching on my own. So that's super helpful.
Ethan, I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet one more time. And so here is this is my copy of the sample student scores. So I'm going to do it is alphabetized already. I'm going to go ahead and do, so now it's not alphabetized. I did my, Control Z. I'm going to highlight exactly what I want to sort. And my system is a little different than Ethan's. I'm going to highlight what I want to keep together. I want these all to be sorted at the same time. So I'm going to go to data and sort range by column A. Excuse me. So now one other question that was shown that I had in the chat was, how do I split that again? So one thing to think of is I want to always add my column before I hit split. So I'm going to go up here and insert column to the right. Now I'm going to go to my names. I'm going to highlight them. Go to data. Down at the bottom, we have split text to columns. And when I do that, it's going to give me a separator, and I could do a comma, I could do a semicolon. I'm just going to do a space so that when there's a space, there's a new column. And lo and behold, now I have my names split up, and I could switch. So I've got Aretha Franklin. Really what I want is I want this to go in front of that. I want last names first. I highlight my column and I just drag. And now it can switch spots. I'm going to take this name, I'm going to highlight it and Control X, and Control V, just move it that way. Other questions on spreadsheets now that we're back here and we're looking at this?
I do have maybe a question, but more like a comment, I think. We don't use Google's where I work at for the school district. However, I can, like, for example, this spreadsheet that you have up here, I could easily take this because I have a copy of it. And if I already have like the sums, like all of the formulas and everything inserted, and if I change the data, like instead of 93 for Aretha Franklin for test 1, it's 90. Test 2 is 97. So and then the name change, instead of Aretha, it's somebody else. I can easily use this as a template instead of having the averages all over again.
Yep.
Right?
So, and again, I'm just gonna go ahead and do, I'm gonna go my total sum equals sum parentheses. And again, if I'm gonna stop there, it's gonna give me some suggestions. If the suggestion is right, just click on it. There we go. If the suggestion, they're pretty smart. Now, I'm going to go over here and go equals sum parentheses. And this one didn't do the same thing, but I'm just going to go up here and highlight and close it. Think of your parentheses as an open and a close. Open it, close it. Kind of like if I, for my child that's living here, if you open a cabinet, you close it. If you open a sum, you close it. And those parentheses, or that's what we're going to do. As we finish up, as you go this week, thinking about the products that you're going to see, you're going to be looking at the different products. Think about how you can use those in multiple different content areas. How could you use it with students? How could you use it with colleagues? How could you use it in professional development? And keeping those, again, those computational thinking ideas in mind. What's the big idea? How can we break it down into smaller parts? And can you recognize some of the patterns that you're seeing in the process when you, or create a step-by-step guide? How might you explain to me how to sort arrange? How would you explain to a student how you might be able to sort arrange? What you might be seeing now as I go between applications, see this box, this is a text box, see the picture. If I go over to my sheets, I have a lot of these same icons. Here I have bold, I have my underline, this paint fill, they're the same with every single application. Just something to think about, get to know those icons so then they do the same functions. All right, Ethan, closing thoughts.
Spreadsheets, definitely the most complex application there is. There's so many things you can do with it. So again, like Darcy said, do not let this hold you up. This is just one of those tools in your tool shed. You might not be into the data, right? And so a lot of your programs might already give you the data visualized exactly the way you want it. But just know this is a really cool tool, right? If you are having your students do any surveys, them building their survey inside of a Google form and then exporting the data here is really awesome. Then they can take that data, they can use it in different ways. The other thing is you can look up like, and we'll share this in the extra resources, but different ways educators have used spreadsheets. Right. So maybe you're like, well, maybe I do want a book checkout, right? Or maybe I do want a device checkout or some type of application like that where I know who has what device. You can build that inside of Google Spreadsheets. And there's teachers who've already built it in templates. So I think like you can get like Google Slides down. Like, you know, like I think there's people, a lot of people who like, man, I'm really good at Google Slides. I know how to do everything. I know how to utilize it. I don't think anyone's like, you know, oh, I got Google Sheets down. And if they do, it's their career, right? They're using it as like a really powerful tool for their career. So just be, yeah, that's the one thing. It's not easy. As Darcy said, this is a really difficult thing and it can get really complex, but just mess around with it. Have fun with it.
All right, and don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to drop my email in the chat. And if you have questions or just want, okay, I need some help, drop me a line and we can work. Okay. Thank you and have a great evening. And it is officially my Friday now. I'm going to be done.
Woo! Go enjoy it.
All right. Have a good night.
I want to say hi. You've ruined the whole entire office. So say hi.
Hi, Holly.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. Darcy, when you were saying data, he kept yelling data.
I understand that.
Kimberly, you got anything?
Yeah, well, I have a question since I got stuck at the building I was working in later than usual. I missed, and I was on my phone and now I'm on my computer. I missed being able to grab the link for the slide sheets that y'all were working on. Can I get that link again so I can practice? Because
I'll pull
that
that.
is one area I'm not.
I just put it in the chat for you.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm gonna open a Google Doc here real quick and copy that over.
And our next, we'll actually probably do it in session 6. So yeah, the next session, as we prepare for session 7, we will have this whole entire slide deck done. And you'll be able to go through every single application, see a task, and then see a video of that task being completed. And so I think that would be super, I think that's going to be a super tool, just a good study tool for when we get ready to take the test.
Yes, definitely.
All righty. Well, I am going to go ahead and head off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darcy.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a good one, Darcy. Anyone else? Sarah, Kelly, any help whatsoever?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Have a good.
That was really great, though. I'm just really impressed with this class. Thanks a lot. I'm getting a lot out of it. So you're doing a great job.
You know, me and Darcy were talking about that with the whole team, and we said there's something special about this cohort. Like it seems like there's a lot, like there's some good stuff being addressed, which is the whole purpose of PD. So we appreciate that. And your classroom looks awesome, by the way.
Thanks. I just got new desks, and we had our first day. We had a lot of kids in the classroom today. We're all far apart, but we had 24 kids in a class.
That's awesome.
It was quite a day.
Are you in Yakima?
No, we're in Longview.
Okay.
Longview, Washington. Yeah, so our area is starting to go back. We're 4 days a week, and we still have remote kids. So I'm still doing Zoom. That's why I just put the camera back across the class, but I have some kids Zooming, and then but they're coming back 4 days a week now. So
That's
today was the first day, so it was pretty good. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
When I consulted for Discovery Channel, I had a job in Yakima where I had to actually go teach the product in like 12 teachers' classes, and your class looks like a lot of classes look the same. It's a pretty new school, right?
No, not a new school.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's been 12 years.
Oh, that's new. That is a new school.
Yeah. So I guess it's remodeled. The school's been here for a long time. It's remodeled. Yeah, and then we just got these new desks. So they're really like, the kids were excited today to have them. So
Awesome.
yeah. No, it's good because we're using the stuff that we're doing. I mean, we're literally using it this year. I mean, all the time. So I'm doing Google Sheets and Google Forms way more than we've ever had. So I think it's also the time that you guys are teaching this class. It's so essential for us, what we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
And what grade level are you?
Oh, I'm 6th grade.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you're teaching science, obviously.
Yeah.
So I use the Google spreadsheets for like all of my data capture. Like any type of tables, we're doing a hands-on, we're doing a calorimetry test, we're doing forces, whatever it is, like record your data or just give them the option of recording their data into
Google Sheets.
Yeah, because it's really like, it can save a ton of time. Like you can create a Google Sheet, right? Where you might run into the issue of Fahrenheit or converting meters to feet, right? Or converting Fahrenheit to Celsius. You can make a Google thing that has 2 sides where once a kid types in 30 degrees Celsius, it spits out just based off the formula, what it is Fahrenheit. And so if a kid can build that and you can work with a kid, then you've removed that math barrier for them.
Yeah,
They had like, I taught science my whole, I taught math to start with, but then I taught science, and nothing frustrated me more in physics than like taking 35 minutes, 40 minutes of the period, setting up like a, a rational equation so they could cross multiply. And like kids would get so frustrated. I'm like, this isn't the point of science. Like we can teach the conceptual. So I would build
Yeah.
these, and my kids would have these formulas built that they built themselves in the spreadsheet or Excel. They would type in, all right, what's 85 degrees in Celsius? Boom, got it. Now I can do the formula.
yeah, they would love that. I love that idea. Yeah, I haven't used Sheets yet and I haven't really used it a lot up until this year. So I learned a lot today. So it's still new to me, but that's inspiring to do that. That's a good idea.
Awesome.
We are doing thermal energy right now. So I was just thinking, I can totally do that.
And everything as a high school AP physics teacher, everything has to be in metrics, because like getting kids who are like, wait, why aren't we talking Fahrenheit? I'm like, oh no. But
Okay, cool.
yep, have a good one. Kimberly,
Thanks.
hop back in. You have any questions? Oh, you're muted.
I did. As soon as I went out, I was like, oh, crud, I don't have that slide. You guys had a slide up that had directions on what to do with that. Can you throw that up so I can get a quick picture?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. There it is.
All right, perfect. I'm going to see if I can get I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. Ugh. Let's see if I can get a screenshot, and then I'm going to do it this way because I don't know if my computer always grabs it. All right.